There is a sickness in modern men that nobody wants to name. It isn't poverty, it isn't a weak body. It's the desperate need to be liked. You see it everywhere. Men walking with their heads slightly lowered, constantly reading faces, trying to see if they're approved of or rejected. They talk not to defend themselves, but to get a pat on the head. They offer loyalty the way a stray dog rolls onto its back and exposes its belly, hoping not to be kicked. That is how most men are trained, and that is your first quiet death. From the beginning, you were told that loyalty is one of the highest virtues. Be loyal to family, be loyal to friends, be loyal to companies, to leaders, to ideas. You were told that loyalty makes you good. But no one told you that loyalty, when given blindly, is just a leash wrapped around your throat. The man who hands out loyalty freely, without thought, turns himself into a slave. And the man who demands loyalty he has not earned becomes a tyrant. In both cases, the dog suffers. Look at the dog everyone praises. Loyal, obedient, faithful. But under the compliments, what is it really? A creature bred for submission. Its instincts have been dulled on purpose. Its teeth are not for hunting, but for defending its master. Its life is not its own. It eats when it is allowed. It moves when it is called. It is praised when useful and scolded when it forgets its place. What the world calls loyalty is often just a pretty name for surrender. The dog lives for the hand that feeds it. It becomes addicted to approval, to praise, to being told it's good. Rejection terrifies it. Silence confuses it. Harshness breaks it. The dog is not noble. The dog is dependent. In politics, in business, in relationships, the man who lives like a dog, eager to be accepted, quick to apologize, constantly worried about how he is seen, will stay at the feet of others for his entire life. He will never lead. He will never be taken seriously. Because leadership demands independence of thought. It demands the ability to act without applause, to stand alone without begging for reassurance. A man trained to fear disapproval cannot lead anything. Not a kingdom, not a company, not even his own life. Such a man waits for orders. He doesn't move until someone else speaks first. His emotions belong to other people. Their opinions decide what he does and what he thinks of himself. This is the first and most subtle death, the death of personal command. Your body is alive, but your will is dead. And a man like that cannot survive in a world ruled by wolves and lions. Courts, boardrooms, social circles, and streets are full of predators who smile politely, speak softly, and watch everything. They don't bark, they don't beg, they don't announce their intentions. They observe, calculate, and move only when the moment is right. The desperate man, the dog-hearted man, is the opposite. He needs to be seen. He needs to feel accepted. He spills his entire soul with every gesture. His insecurities, hopes, fears, and desires are written in his eyes, his posture, his words. The more cunning can read him in seconds. The tragedy of the dog is not only its loyalty, it's the belief that this loyalty will save it. The dog truly believes that if it is kind, it will be spared. If it is obedient, it will be protected. If it is harmless, it will be loved forever. But love fades. Situations change. Masters grow bored. And when danger appears or resources thin out, the dog is the first thing sacrificed or simply abandoned. Because a dog that cannot hunt, cannot fight, and cannot survive on its own is a burden. And burdens are discarded. In peaceful times, the dog may be pampered and shown off. In times of conflict, it is useless. It barks to warn but lacks the courage and cunning to act. It must rely on others to do what it cannot do for itself. That is why it is never feared. And to be unfearable is to be powerless. Power does not belong to the man who is most loved. It belongs to the man who is perceived as dangerous, even if he rarely has to prove it. A man with the heart of a dog will never command respect. At best, he will inspire sympathy. But sympathy does not build empires. Sympathy does not win wars. Sympathy does not stop the knife at your throat. The worship of dog traits, loyalty, obedience, gentleness, eagerness to please, is not some innocent cultural value. It is a tool. It is used by those in power to keep others tame. They preach virtue not because they live by it, but because it keeps the people who follow it weak and predictable. Those at the top don't live like dogs. They just train everyone else too. They smile while the dog defends their estates, fights their battles, protects their reputation, serves their ambition. The dog believes it is living out some noble destiny. It calls its sacrifice honorable. But nobility without autonomy is just a romantic word for servitude. You see the full extent of the dog's prison when you notice how quickly the world turns on it. The dog that bites once even in self-defense is labeled dangerous. The dog that hesitates to obey is called a problem. The dog that resists its master is destroyed. The message is clear. Obedience is not rewarded, it is expected. And the moment you stop obeying, all the value you thought you had disappears. The servant who forgets his place is not corrected. He is removed. So the same traits that once made the dog useful become the reason it is eliminated. The dog is admired by fools and used by the cunning. Its loyalty is paraded as moral greatness. Its obedience is mistaken for inner strength. Its eagerness to please is dressed up as goodness. Strip away the poetry, and what are you left with? A creature trained to need approval. A man who rushes to lower himself at the slightest hint of disapproval. A human being who trades away his natural instincts just to receive a little pat on the head. The dog is not born that way. It is broken into that shape. And so is the man who chooses to live like it. The man who chooses to live like a dog thinks that safety comes from being agreeable, from never upsetting anyone, never being a threat. He fears conflict more than humiliation, punishment more than mediocrity. He learns to read the emotions of others like a weather forecast, always watching, always adjusting, terrified of offending. He anticipates needs before they're spoken, not out of insight, but out of fear. Fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of being seen as dangerous. His tongue is quick with apologies, his eyes always seeking permission. He doesn't move unless someone gives him a signal. He doesn't speak unless invited. He's polite, pleasant, and harmless, the perfect citizen, the perfect follower. But harmlessness is not virtue. It's castration disguised as morality. The man who lives this way walks on a leash called public opinion. He thrives when praised and collapses when criticized. One compliment fuels him, one insult breaks him. He cannot handle tension because he has never learned solitude. He cannot command respect because he has never learned to be feared. He tells himself that kindness will protect him, that loyalty will elevate him, that humility will make people love him. But the world doesn't work that way. Power respects only those who can act without needing permission, who can take without asking, who can stand completely alone and remain unshaken. Look closely at the men who rise in courts, in boardrooms, in politics, in life. They're never the ones who try hardest to please. The eager are tolerated, used, and forgotten. The dog might sit beside the throne, but it's never sitting on it. When the feast ends, it's thrown a scrap, and it wags its tail like it's been blessed. It mistakes proximity to power for power itself. But when crisis comes, when famine, war, or competition arrive, that same dog is discarded. Because affection isn't the same as necessity. The powerful keep dogs only as long as they are useful. The moment they're not, they are replaced. Kings do not kneel before their subjects. Generals do not beg their soldiers for love. Masters do not apologize to servants. The entire structure of command, from nature to nations, is built on distance, discipline, and the cold ability to act without consent. But the dog cannot bear that distance. It needs affection, reassurance, belonging. It cannot stand silence. It must be seen, praised, and called good. That hunger for validation, that is its cage. And the cruelest part, the dog doesn't even know it's chained. It believes it's free because no one beats it. It believes it's chosen because it's fed. It believes it's loved because it's tolerated. But the moment it disobeys, the leash tightens. The hand that once fed it becomes firm. The voice that once praised it turns cold. It is not love that keeps the dog loyal. It is fear disguised as affection. The dog has been trained to confuse acceptance with survival. It doesn't obey because it agrees. It obeys because it has forgotten how to choose. Watch the dog when its master is gone, when danger appears or hunger strikes. It doesn't know what to do. It paces. It whines. It waits. It has no command over itself. Its instincts have been buried under years of conditioning. It has been rewarded for obedience and punished for initiative. It has learned that thinking for itself leads to pain. So when crisis comes, it freezes. It's useless to itself and to everyone else. It traded its claws for comfort and lost both. In the theater of power, it's not honesty that wins. It's the mask. The most dangerous mask is the wolf. The wolf isn't chaos. It's discipline, precision, silent confidence. It doesn't move without purpose. It doesn't seek approval. It doesn't wag its tail for affection. The wolf trusts its instincts and its teeth. It doesn't cry out to be noticed. It simply is noticed. In a pack, the wolf rises not by begging for favor, but by demonstrating strength. It understands hierarchy, not as a prison, but as a game of strategy. It doesn't flatter its leaders. It challenges them when the moment is right, waits when it must, and strikes when the timing is perfect. The wolf wears control like armor. To wear the wolf as a mask is not to lose your humanity, it's to protect it. Because those who show their true nature too openly are devoured by the cunning. The man who displays every emotion, every thought, every weakness, he becomes a map for others to exploit. The wolf knows that concealment is protection. He doesn't roar when threatened. He observes. He calculates. He waits until the outcome is certain. And then he bites once. Cleanly, finally. The fool acts out of emotion. The wolf acts from certainty. Power isn't just action, it's timing. And timing is the wolf's greatest gift. The wolf isn't hurried by fear or seduced by hope. It doesn't chase every opportunity. It stalks the best one. It knows that the art of domination lives not in noise, but in stillness before the strike. While others run toward bait, the wolf circles. It sees the trap before it's sprung. That's why the wolf survives not because it's the strongest, but because it's the most patient and perceptive. It's willing to do what others won't. The wolf isn't cruel. Cruelty is the tool of the desperate. The wolf kills not for pleasure, but for necessity. It wastes no motion, no emotion, no explanation. It knows that fear is sharper than love, that silence speaks louder than pleading. When people face the wolf, they feel it, that quiet certainty, the presence that doesn't need to prove itself. No barking, no showing off, just calm power. That is dominance. To wear the wolf's mask is to master duality. You can't be a beast all the time, but you must always have the beast within reach. Real strength lies in appearing harmless while remaining dangerous. The sheep sleep peacefully beside the dog, but they tremble when the wolf steps near. The man who understands power knows this. His kindness is a choice, not a need. His gentleness is calculated, not habitual. He speaks softly because he knows his silence can kill. The man without the wolf inside him is defenseless, too eager to explain, too afraid to offend, too obsessed with being seen as good. The wolf doesn't care about perception. It cares about results. It doesn't argue morality with the weak. It doesn't justify itself. It simply acts and lets the outcome speak. That's what freedom truly is. Not being above others, but being unchained from their judgment. To understand the wolf, you must understand masks. Because the world does not reward those who show their true face, it devours them. The man who walks around naked in his emotions, whose honesty spills without restraint, becomes predictable. He is easy to manipulate, easy to read, and easy to destroy. The man who learns to control his expression, to hide his thoughts behind calm silence, becomes untouchable. The wise man knows when to reveal his teeth and when to smile. He knows that power isn't loud. It's quiet, precise, and deliberate. Loyalty, this word people worship, has been twisted into a virtue that keeps men obedient. It's spoken of as if it were a crown placed on the head of good men. But that crown is made of iron, and it's fastened like a chain around the neck. Loyalty, in its purest form, is not a gift. It's a restraint. It binds a man not to a cause, but to a master. Not to reason, but to submission. It's a beautiful word used to make slavery sound noble. The loyal man believes his devotion makes him strong, that standing by one person or one ideal proves his integrity. But look closer, and you'll see paralysis. The loyal man cannot move without permission. He cannot walk away, even when staying destroys him. He cannot adapt, even when loyalty becomes suicide. He calls this strength. But it's just fear wearing armor. Those who worship loyalty above reason are always the first to be sacrificed and the last to be remembered. History honors them briefly and then buries them. Because the rulers, the cunning, the opportunists, they love loyalty in others. It makes people predictable, controllable, and harmless. Loyal men don't ask questions. They don't rebel. They endure injustice quietly, hoping that one day their faith will be rewarded. It never is. When the loyal man's usefulness runs out, he's thrown aside. Gratitude fades fast in power's world. And the loyal die believing they'll be remembered. They never are. Loyalty only has value when it's given with leverage. To give it blindly is to hand over your life with no conditions. The intelligent man gives loyalty like a loan, not a gift. It's conditional, strategic, and reversible. He may speak the language of fidelity, but behind his calm face is calculation. He allies when it benefits him, and withdraws when it threatens him. He knows that survival requires flexibility, that sometimes betrayal is not evil, but evolution. To demand loyalty is to reveal fear. Only the weak beg for it. The strong command allegiance through fear, force, and necessity. Those who cannot inspire fear must rely on guilt. They hide their insecurity behind moral speeches about trust and faith. But the wolf sees through this illusion. He knows that blind loyalty is the favorite weapon of tyrants. It keeps their servants tame and their enemies predictable. The truly wise do not demand loyalty from others, and they do not offer it without purpose. They form alliances, not bonds. They make deals, not vows. And when the tide shifts, they adjust their sails first. That's not dishonor. That's survival. The man who dies defending loyalty for its own sake will be remembered as a fool briefly, and by those who replaced him. The man who bends when he must, who changes masks when the time demands, will be remembered as alive. Because the truth is simple. The world bends only for the dangerous. It doesn't matter if you're kind, loyal, or harmless. If you lack fangs, you're food. Power is not held by those who cry for fairness. It belongs to those who can act without permission. A man who whimpers when struck, who asks instead of commands, who pleads for mercy. He marks himself as prey. And nature, whether in forests or boardrooms, has never spared the prey. This isn't cruelty. It's structure. The world bows to power, not pity. And power is not about rage or noise. It's about presence. The dog barks to sound strong, but it barks because it's scared. The wolf doesn't need to bark. His silence does the work. His stillness unsettles everything around him. That's the art of dominance. To say little, to do much. To let silence speak the threat that words cannot. When men look into your eyes and sense that you will not flinch, will not beg, will not hesitate, they do not test you twice. The man who cannot be feared cannot be respected. He might be liked, he might be pitied, but he will never be trusted with power. Leaders are not chosen for their warmth. They are chosen for their coldness under pressure. A prince who cannot punish is a figurehead. A general who hesitates to retaliate becomes a coffin for his men. A man who cannot say no with finality will be drained until he is empty. The world is full of corpses that once smiled too often. Pleasant men, soft men, men who mistook agreeableness for strength. Fear, when controlled, is not a weakness, it's a tool. It clears obstacles faster than diplomacy ever could. One act of calculated brutality is remembered longer than 100 gentle deeds. Mercy only has meaning when it comes from the strong. When the weak show mercy, it's not seen as noble, it's seen as helpless. And helplessness invites predators. The predator doesn't negotiate with prey, he consumes it. That's the law of nature, the law of politics, and the law of power. So you must understand this. A man cannot cry out when wounded. He cannot explain when challenged. He cannot appeal to fairness. Fairness is a myth crafted by the powerful to pacify those who have none. The world doesn't care what you deserve. It only cares what you can take, hold, and protect. If you want to avoid being dominated, you must learn to radiate dominance. Not by shouting, not by aggression, but through presence, through an aura that says, I will not yield. Your face must show no panic, your voice no desperation, your hands no tremor, even when betrayal cuts deep. The wolf knows that fangs are not just weapons, they are symbols. The difference between the powerful and the powerless is not morality, it's action without permission. The man with fangs doesn't wait for permission. He creates the opportunity. He knows that kindness without leverage is weakness, and diplomacy without the threat of consequence is just noise. To be strong is not to destroy everything in your path. It's to have the power to destroy and choose not to. The weak beg for mercy because they can't fight back. The strong offer mercy because they could. Even in the so-called civilized world, the same law applies. In politics, the man who can ruin reputations gets heard. In business, The one who can walk away from the table or flip it over controls the deal. And in personal life, the man known to punish betrayal without warning, he has never betrayed twice. That reputation, that whisper of ruthlessness, changes everything. People measure their words, they step lightly, they treat you with the caution they reserve for danger. And that's the quiet power most never discover. The ability to control others without raising your voice. There is no honor in becoming a martyr for your principles. If your enemies celebrate your downfall, what good did your virtue do? A man must learn to be steel-wrapped in velvet, soft in tone, deadly in action, calm while capable of chaos. When you walk into a room, it's better they fear offending you than forget you were ever there. The whimper is forgotten. The fang is remembered. History is written by those who had the teeth to defend their ideas. No one climbs to power through affection. The desire to be liked is the first shackle on an ambitious man's neck. It dulls his instincts, slows his actions, and makes him seek approval before moving. It hands over his authority to the very crowd he should command. The man who wants to rise must learn early. The currency of power is not popularity, but clarity. And clarity means making decisions that will be despised by many, but respected by few. Hatred is not failure. Hatred is a signal. It means you've stopped being background noise in other people's lives. It means your presence disturbs their comfort. It means you're finally being felt. It's not the hated man who's in danger. It's the man who's forgotten, the man no one fears to cross. Power cannot exist without enemies. Because power divides, it creates contrast. Those above are always resented by those below. That resentment becomes hate, and that hate is the tax you pay for influence. The weak man runs from it. The strong man uses it. The man who fears being hated will never rise. He will betray himself to stay loved. He will fold at the first sign of disapproval. He will trade authority for applause. But the man who accepts hate as part of leadership, he is free. He acts on his own terms. He moves without explanation. He punishes without apology. He speaks when others stay silent. That man becomes ungovernable. The rulers, the conquerors, the founders of nations, all were hated in their time. The masses called them cruel. Their peers called them arrogant. Their enemies called them evil. But history doesn't ask if they were loved. It asks if they won. And that's the only question that matters. The man who tries to be loved by everyone becomes invisible. He softens his words, smooths his edges, bends his spine to avoid offending anyone, and in doing so, he disappears. He stops standing for anything. He becomes furniture in other people's lives, useful only when needed, ignored when not. He forgets how to say no. He forgets how to draw blood with silence. He becomes agreeable, predictable, easy to use, and when people are done using him, they discard him politely with the same empty smiles that once praised him. Affection is performance. The moment you stop performing, the applause stops. That is why the man who seeks constant approval is doomed. He builds his worth on quicksand, on the shifting moods of others. The moment they turn, he collapses. You must choose the illusion of harmony or the reality of progress. Because real progress in politics, business, and life always demands someone's discomfort. If you want to move forward, you will have to upset the comfortable, threaten the lazy, and anger the mediocre. That is the price of motion. You will be called cruel for being efficient. You will be called arrogant for refusing to explain yourself. You will be called heartless for cutting off what no longer serves you. Let them speak. Their words are the soundtrack of your ascent. Their judgment is a confession. They resent what they cannot do. They hate you because you act while they hesitate. You are proof that their excuses were lies. If you are not hated by some, you are not leading. You are following. Or worse, standing still. Hatred is the storm that tests your roof. It's the wind that reminds you you're moving upward. And every man who ever reached power has walked through that storm. It comes from below, from those who wish they had your position. It comes from beside you, from those jealous of your pace. And it comes from above, from those afraid you might take their throne. But the man who stops walking because of the wind will never see the view from the top. The path to dominance is not paved with softness. It is carved by sharp intent and ruthless refusal to be tamed. The world does not reward harmlessness. It uses the harmless. It silences them. It forgets them. To rise, you must not only reject weakness, you must hunt it within yourself and kill it. The dog inside you, obedient, eager, desperate for love, must die. Only then can the wolf rise. The wolf does not beg. It does not whimper. It does not wait for permission. It acts. It decides. It takes what is necessary, because survival is never granted. It is taken. Let others find virtue in obedience. You must find power in mastery, and mastery requires a kind of solitude most men can't stand. It demands you step outside the pack, that you live in the tension between compassion and cruelty, gentleness and danger. It means carrying fangs beneath a calm smile. You will walk alone at times, but that is where your edge is sharpened in isolation, where no one praises you and no one comforts you. The crowd teaches obedience. Solitude teaches authority. Most men crumble in silence. They can't bear being misunderstood. They rush to explain themselves, to clear their name, to make everyone get it. Don't. You do not owe the world your explanations. Your results will speak louder than any defense. The dog explains. The wolf acts. Understand this. Mercy is only mercy when it's optional. Forgiveness is power only when punishment is possible. Your restraint means nothing if you have no ability to strike. So, cultivate capability. Become dangerous quietly. Let your calmness make people wonder what you're capable of. Let them fear the silence more than the roar. To be feared is not to be cruel, it's to be respected without begging for it. When your presence carries weight, you won't need to raise your voice. You won't need to defend yourself. You won't need to chase validation. The air around you will do the talking. People will test you once. They'll never test you again. The wolf does not have to convince the forest that he's dangerous. The forest already knows. So stop trying to prove yourself to people who live off approval. Let your power remain quiet, controlled, unseen until required. Move like shadow. Strike like certainty. Power, at its core, is not about dominance over others. It's mastery over yourself, over your impulses, emotions, and fears. You must be able to feel the sting of betrayal and show no weakness. You must hear slander and respond with silence. You must be doubted and remain unmoved. Because power is not noise, it's gravity. The dog barks to be noticed. The wolf simply walks by and everything steps aside. That is the difference between wanting to be liked and being impossible to ignore. If you wish to lead, train your emotions like soldiers. Discipline your reactions. Do not let anger speak before calculation. Do not let fear decide before reason. The man who rules himself cannot be ruled by anyone else. And this is where most men fail. They think control means suppressing desire, cutting off ambition, killing their instincts. But that's not control, that's castration. True control is not denying the wolf. It's mastering him. The wolf inside you must be trained, not chained. He must learn patience, calculation, and silence. but he must never lose his bite. Because when the moment comes, and it always comes, you will need it. The weak man hesitates when opportunity demands risk. The strong man recognizes that moment for what it is, the test of his evolution. Everything you've endured, rejection, humiliation, loneliness, all of it has been training. Training to strip the dog from your soul. Every time you were ignored, it taught you to stop seeking validation. Every time you were betrayed, it taught you to stand alone. Every time you were underestimated, it sharpened your instinct. Those were not punishments. They were awakenings. Because the world doesn't want you free, it wants you tame. And everything that tries to tame you is testing whether the wolf within still breathes. Let others keep wagging their tails for approval. Let them chase comfort, applause, and belonging. You must be something rarer. Something feared, respected, and unbending. To be harmless is to live and die on a leash. To be dangerous, but disciplined, that is freedom. So when they call you cold, smile. When they call you ruthless, nod. When they call you heartless, know they are naming the part of you that has finally learned to survive. The dog in you must die, not because the world is cruel, but because only the wolf can walk it without being eaten. The death of the dog inside you is not the end of your goodness. It is the awakening of your strength. The world does not hate kindness. It hates weakness wearing the mask of kindness. To be kind without strength is to invite control. To be powerful and still choose kindness, that is true mastery. The wolf understands this balance perfectly. He knows that real power doesn't shout. It doesn't explain. It doesn't perform. Real power is quiet. It radiates certainty. The wolf doesn't waste motion. He doesn't need approval. His presence alone commands space. That is why the powerful rarely raise their voices. They don't have to. When people see you, they should feel your weight before you speak. They should sense in your calm that crossing you has a cost. They should feel that your silence is not passivity but potential. Your patience, not submission, but strategy. That is true dominance. Stillness with the promise of consequence. And that presence is not inherited. It's built, forged in rejection, solitude, and betrayal. Every disappointment carved away the obedient dog in you. Every humiliation stripped your need for validation. Every silence taught you how to stand alone. Pain, properly understood, is not your enemy. It's your furnace. Every time you were ignored, you learned not to need attention. Every time you were betrayed, you learned to rely on no one. Every time you were underestimated, you learned to sharpen your instincts in the dark. You were not being destroyed. You were being refined. The dog begs for permission. The wolf moves on instinct. The man who learns to govern himself, his emotions, his impulses, his need for approval, becomes ungovernable. He doesn't chase attention. It comes to him naturally. He doesn't justify his choices. His results justify them. He doesn't argue morality. He acts and lets history decide. Because the higher you climb, the quieter your power must become. The weak man reacts. The strong man waits. The wise man calculates. When you master your reactions, you master everything. The wolf cannot be provoked by gossip, guilt, or fear. He's immune to manipulation because he doesn't depend on others' opinions to act. That's why he is feared, not for what he does, but for what he could do. That is the art of power, potential controlled. You must learn this restraint, because the man who barks for attention wastes his fangs. The man who roars without precision reveals his hand. The man who acts without calculation bleeds before he strikes. Let others talk, brag, bark. You remain silent until silence itself becomes a weapon. Because power does not live in expression. It lives in control. This is why Machiavelli wrote that it is safer to be feared than loved. Not because fear is cruel, but because fear is consistent. Love depends on fantasy, emotion, and timing. It shifts with mood and memory. Fear is rooted in recognition. It is tied to consequence. Love fades when you falter. Fear remains even when they disagree. And when fear is tempered by respect, it becomes authority. That is the foundation of lasting leadership. Command that does not rely on affection. The man who seeks love becomes predictable. The man who understands fear becomes permanent. But this doesn't mean you must be cruel. Cruelty is the tool of the desperate. True strength is efficient, detached, and deliberate. It punishes only when necessary, and never for ego. You must be the kind of man who carries both gentleness and danger, who can show compassion without surrendering control. Mercy without leverage is meaningless. Patience without discipline is weakness. Kindness only has value when you can enforce consequence. So, learn to be dangerous quietly. Let people sense that you could strike, even if you choose not to. Let your silence create uncertainty. Let your eyes hold calm, but never emptiness. The wolf is not loud because he doesn't need to prove he can kill. His stillness is enough. The stronger you become, the less you must do. The more capable you are, the less you must explain. The more feared you are, the less you must defend yourself. That's the paradox of power. The greater it is, the gentler it appears. You must also understand this. To rise, you must accept being hated. The man who fears hatred will never lead. He'll betray his vision to please others. He'll trade truth for approval. He'll dilute his strength for comfort. But the man who accepts hate as the price of clarity becomes untouchable. He acts while others overthink. He speaks when others hesitate. He cuts when others compromise. He doesn't ask to be understood. He demands to be effective. Leadership is not about being liked. It's about being undeniable. The masses will always call decisive men cruel. They will call discipline arrogance. They will call strategy manipulation. Let them. Their noise is the sound of your ascent. The opinions of the powerless are the lullabies of the weak. You owe them no explanation. Those who call you ruthless are simply confessing that your will terrifies them. Those who call you heartless only mean they can no longer use your heart against you. Let them speak. You stay silent. Because silence is what breaks men who expect reaction. Power is not in retaliation. It's in control. The wolf doesn't run after every insult. He walks away, because the forest already knows who he is. When you reach that level, you won't need to prove anything. Your calm will be your crown. Your focus will be your defense. Your restraint will be your weapon. The man who has nothing to prove becomes the most feared kind of man. So stop begging to be loved. Stop explaining to be understood. Stop apologizing for existing as you are. You are not meant to be a pet. You are meant to be a force. Kill the part of you that waits for permission. Kill the part that craves validation. Kill the part that flinches when misunderstood. Let the wolf rise patient, watchful, and dangerously quiet. Move with intention. Speak with precision. Strike only when certainty is yours. Because in the end, it's not the bark that survives history. It's the silence before the bite, and the bite that changes everything.